In this video, we are going to go over some consumer purchasing strategies and some legal protections you may have. Commonly overlooked trade-offs when buying include paying a higher price over time by using credit to buy items you need now. Yes, but it has the word need. And if you do need it, then sure, you may have to go through that process. But if it's just a want, you might want to reconsider or look more into it. Buying unknown, possibly poor quality brands that are less expensive. I myself am a victim of this all the time. Looking for the lowest price on something may actually turn out to be a bad idea because you end up with something of very low quality, whether it's a product or service. Ordering online saves time, very convenient. We definitely use it a lot in this day and age, but you already know the downsides. It'll be difficult to read. You may not get exactly what you saw, and it may be very difficult to return, replace, or repair. Taking time and effort to comparison shop to save money and obtain better after-sales service. The trade-off is time here. You want to do some comparison shopping, but at one point, you need to then make a decision. There's this thing known as analysis paralysis, where you compare endlessly and never actually narrow it down to the and make a decision to purchase. And it may be very time consuming unnecessarily. So what are some wise purchasing strategies? Well, comparison shopping is considering alternative stores, brands, and prices. In this day and age with the internet, it's so much easier, and it would be almost insane not to do it. Before the internet, which is way, way before, you had to physically go to the stores and compare. Avoid impulse buying, unplanned purchasing, which can result in financial problems. The word impulse buying says it itself, impulse. Avoid it. Give yourself some time. You want something, you want to buy it right there and then. You should stop. And the more expensive the item, the more reason to stop and give yourself some time to think about it. 3 days is a good rule of thumb to start with. Timing purchases. Be aware if the price varies with the time of the year. I'm just going to say holidays versus the rest of the year. Black Friday. Think about those things. Now, it doesn't have to be holidays specific. Some items are cyclical, meaning that when they have slow sales, you are more likely to come across a good deal when the demand is low. Cars may have cyclical periods throughout the year, home buying, but those are the only two. It varies a lot. Clothing might be the example that most people are familiar with. Buying winter clothing during summer to prepare may be a good strategy. Location, choice of retailer depends on location, price, product selection, and services available. Going to the mall is not the same as going to a different place in town with different stores, locations. Malls are typically more expensive. Cooperatives, a nonprofit organization, members save money. Those are less common, but if you want, you can go ahead and search for them. Wise purchasing strategies, some more brand comparison shopping of store brand, low cost alternatives. That's what you know as generic brands compared to national brands, the highly advertised, more famous brands. For some things, it shouldn't be a difference whether you buy something brand name or not. For other ones, it may make a difference, but it's a personal choice. let's say clothing, accessories, a car, is up to you. Well, it's not recommended, but it's up to you if you want to spend the extra money to have that extra bragging rights that you have a brand name item. Label information. Information on label can be helpful or just advertising. You just gonna have to, it varies a lot between product and industry. Some are controlled by law, like federal law requires labels on food. Food have some minimum required descriptions that they have to have. Open dating describes the freshness or shelf life of perishable products. Food, the most common one, but it's not the only one. Price comparison, unit pricing. Now, this has become more and more common, whether you're online or in the store. Let's use groceries as an example. They'll give you the price of the product, but also next to it, you'll see the price per ounce or per gram or whatever they break it down to. Now, and that's where the true comparison comes in. Coupons help save money on groceries, of course. Collect coupons and use them. Some people are very, very aggressive on their coupon use. And yes, it can save you money. Convenience and ready-to-use products may mean higher prices. So the fact that you're able to use it right away, or you don't have to wait to order it, or that it's a convenience, think exactly of the name convenience store, when the corner, easy to get to, you park right away, go in, go out, you're gonna pay a little more for that convenience. Large packages are usually the best buy. Now let's talk about that for a moment. Back to the grocery example. Yes, under normal circumstances, the bigger box of cereal would be a better price per unit than the smaller box of cereal. However, always look at the price per unit, because it's not always the case. Buying the bigger volume doesn't always mean cheaper. And it's not necessarily a trick. It's just that it's a supply and demand issue. If a lot of people are buying the bigger box and are not buying the smaller boxes, they will shift price on one of them or both of them in order to drive demand towards the one that they have too much inventory of. So it might be just an inventory management situation. And so you always have to pay attention, because if they're trying to get rid of the smaller boxes, then you're probably going to get a better price of the smaller boxes. If they're trying to move that inventory. Let's talk about warranties. You hear them all the time, especially the extended warranties. The funny thing is that extended warranties are not actual warranties. We'll talk about that in a moment. A warranty is a written guarantee from the manufacturer or distributor that specifies the conditions under which the product can be returned, replaced, or repaired. Full or limited express warranties, usually written. Implied warranty of title indicates the seller has the right to sell the product. The word implied is there, and meaning that it doesn't have to be actually specifically written. Once you have ownership of the title, you are allowed to sell the product forward. Implied warranty of merchantability guarantees the product is fit for its ordinary use. This may vary from country to country. This one, it's so in the United States at least, and many countries too, but it just may vary. Now, used car warranties. Disclosures must be described in the warranty. There are some laws that deal with cars that are for consumer protection, and that's when you see when they say as is versus under warranty. That's how you know, but it has to be disclosed. New car warranties include basic parts, powertrain, and corrosion coverage. I'm going to take this moment to talk about warranties. I'm going to use the car as an example, but this will apply to just about any product with a warranty. It is commonly assumed that when they tell you, oh, it has a warranty, that, oh, it's 100% full coverage warranty. That is not the case. You always want to be familiar with what does the warranty cover. This right here with the new car warranties, a lot of people assume that is bumper to bumper all the way. Now, that may be true for the first year or so. It may not be true at all, the bumper to bumper. But the point is that as time goes by and the mileage goes up, what's covered under warranty decreases. And then you have service contracts, which is the real name of extended warranty. It's a service contract. Think of it as a subscription, maybe, if you want to see it that way. So it's not really a warranty. It's a service that you're paying for, similar to an insurance. I will call it closer to an insurance than a warranty. Now, why do they use a warranty, the word on it, especially for cars? Because people understand that a little better of what it means and what it does. Major consumer purchases. We're going to talk about general items, but you're going to see that is somewhat geared towards a motor vehicle purchase. So you got phases on the process of making a consumer purchase that applies to just about everything. Problem identification. If it's a car, the problem is you don't have a car, you need a car, or the car you have broke down, or it's just time to replace it for XY reasons. So the problem identification is something that you need solved, and you do it through the buying a product or service. So first you want to collect information, personal contacts, people you know that either have made a similar purchase recently, could have information valuable to you, or people that are in the industry. Let's say it's a car, then you may know a mechanic, or you may know somebody that works at a car dealership, or anybody within the industry that might have information useful to you. Business organizations. For cars, for example, you can go online and find all kinds of consumer reports and things like that. Media resources, same kind of approach. For technology, you see that a lot of experts that put opinions or review items, and they put it on the media resources, television, websites, etc. Independent testing organizations, third-party consumer reports, similar. It's just that with the internet, these three: business organization, media resources, and consumer reports, independent testing organizations, they're all on the internet. So they all may look very similar. They have different approaches and different risks, because a lot of these consumer reports sometimes, or even the media sources too, if they receive some kind of compensation from the product they're reviewing, there might be a bias on their review. So you have to be careful with that. Government agencies, there are government agencies that protect consumers. So they may have some information about the business you're dealing with or the product that you are buying. It varies. Some are heavily regulated and looked at. Many are not. Online sources, same thing as I mentioned, auto trade and all that. They just all have different approaches and different reasons why they do it. But all of those you can find online in different ways. And in the world of influencers, that's something, are they being paid? Are they really giving an honest opinion? So you have to filter through reliable information or not. Evaluating alternatives. Ask yourself, can I delay the purchase or do without an item? So the idea is avoid impulse buying. In case of a car, typically not being able to delay it unless it's one of those, I already had this car for 3 years, nothing wrong with it, I just want something nicer, shinier, different brand, whatever the case may be. That could be a reason to say, hey, maybe I should delay a car purchase. Also, let's say you do need the car, but not immediately, and it's a bad time to buy. Let's say car prices are high for whatever reason. Then can you delay it and buy the car a little later when prices are more, reasonable? Should I pay cash or buy on credit? That's a big decision to make. The need versus the cost of the item will dictate most of that. Now, a lot of people say, oh, just pay cash or buy a credit. That's not always necessarily true because of the opportunity cost. Which brands should I consider? That's a personal preference, but always is recommended to always step outside your typical boundaries just to see what other brands that you normally wouldn't look at, see what they look like now. How do price, quality, and service differ among stores? This can be very significant. Especially the service. So price and quality, that's a little easier to do. Quality will be the brand. You can check the quality based on the brand and then just price compare. But then the service you get after you buy the product, especially expensive products that may require post-purchase service, that can be important because if they abandon you after they sell it to you, that's an issue. Is it possible to rent item instead of buying? With cars, you can lease, and that's a different conversation, but consider that. An example I like to use is a carpet cleaning equipment, those things that look like a vacuum cleaner, but have the water and the steam and etc. If you only have a couple rooms with carpet, nothing big, and it's only done so far apart, it's probably better to just rent the machine from time to time to use it instead of buying one and putting all that money up front and you're not using it that often. That's one example. Comparison shopping, as we mentioned, comparing, very easy to do these days with the internet. And now selecting vehicle options, that's where we are. So it doesn't have to be just vehicles. Think of a refrigerator, for example. Some refrigerators have ice maker or they don't. And if they do have an ice maker, they have cubes or crushed. Some of them have artisan ice. So the options can get very fancy. Some of them have an internet connection. They're smart refrigerators now. Some of them have the window in the front door, so you don't have to open to see what's in it. So cars, the same thing, mechanical devices, convenience, and aesthetic options. What options and think of want versus need. Most are just wants, the options, but understand how that affects the price. Comparing used vehicles. They say they're CarMax Superstore, but look, we're in the age of the internet. That's not the only place. You should be looking at a variety of places of online car sales when you compare used vehicles and new vehicles for that matter too. It's just that new vehicles are pricing, it's less varied and easier to deal with. With used cars, there's a lot more comparison you should do. So earlier was mentioned about renting versus buying. So this is an alternative with cars. You may lease a motor vehicle. A lease is just like a rental, just a long-term rental. And the terms vary a lot. But the point is that you make a monthly payment that is fixed over a certain amount of time. Advantages, lower payments than buying. This is true. Security deposit smaller than down payment for buying. Typically, yeah, the money you have to put up front is much, much less than I had to put a down payment with all the other amounts that you're doing your buying. Lease agreement provides business records. There's a reason why a lot of businesses do lease instead of buying, but there's a lot of different needs versus the individual. But the point is that you have a good set of records that are maintained by you and the dealership or whoever's leasing you the vehicle. Usually obtain a more expensive vehicle. Well, that goes with the lower payments because typically a lease allows for lower monthly payments than buying. Then you can go for a more expensive vehicle for the same monthly payment. Drawbacks, no ownership interest. Yes, you have no equity being built in the car. And depending on your lease agreement, if you go over the miles, they typically have like a mile limit. and you can choose that up front, then you may have to pay a certain amount for the extra miles. Requirements similar to qualifying for credit. When it comes to your credit history, there is this common perception that to get a lease, you need better credit, and there is some truth to that. It just really depends. No things that you know about when you lease a car, like the terms, capitalized cost of the lease, the money factor. The money factor is just like an equivalent to interest rate. If you were to buy a car, they tell you an interest rate. When you're leasing a car, they can tell you the money factor, but it's just a measurement of time value of money. The monthly payment for sure. Number of payments, that's how long the lease will be, and the residual value. Now, it is very, very important to keep an eye on the residual value. What happens a lot is that when you're negotiating up front the monthly payment and the number of payments and the money factor, they may go ahead and change those to meet what you want. But then what they do is they increase the residual value. The residual value is what you can buy the car if you choose to at the end of the lease. So the higher that number, then the lower they can, there's a limit to it. Then the lower monthly payment you can go ahead and deal with now because the amount being leased is less. But just keep an eye on the residual value. It's typically something not mentioned much that they go ahead and change that in order to get you in the deal up front and not in your favor. So determining purchase price. Price negotiation for new and used cars. Everything is negotiable, always. Some places easier to negotiate than others. But when it comes to cars, you definitely can always try to negotiate. Know necessary information about the product. Oh, by the way, one step back, the best way to price negotiate, or a key way, not the only way, but a real good thing that you should do, always check the price of the same car in other dealers and take them with you, printouts or the web pages, and show them, look, give me a reason to buy from you when I can go down the road here and buy for that. So know necessary information about the product. You want to be as informed as you can. The more expensive the product, the more complex the product, the more you want to be informed about it. Deal with a person of authority to give you a lower price or additional features. This is a typical issue in car dealerships. The salesperson up front can only do some things, and that's what they always say. Well, let's see what we can work out, but themselves never really tell you we can do this or that. Eventually, you're going to be sitting down with the finance person or somebody else, a manager that has authority to actually close the deal on and change the numbers or whatever the situation is. Used cars, current price information in newspaper ads, Kelley Blue Book, and Edmunds. What I recommend is you go to Kelley Blue Book or Edmunds website and you input some information, and they're going to give you different numbers. The numbers have to do with what the car is worth, generally speaking, but then do understand supply and demand impacts. So different markets, the same car in one city may be a lot more expensive than the same car in a different city. And it just has to do with supply and demand. So they're also going to include what the price looks like in the area you're shopping in. So those are two very good tools. They never really match exactly, but they come close. But I typically recommend do both and have both with you, and you know your number somewhere in between. And that's a good number to take with you to also negotiate. New cars, set price dealers or car buying services. New cars may be a little more difficult to negotiate price. You can still negotiate some price, but the wiggle room, to put it that way, could be less than a used car wiggle room. And again, it has to do with inventory levels, cyclical, what time of the year it is. A lot of those things come in play. So comparing financing alternative, which is also part of the price situation, comes down to your monthly payment and what you can afford. Is going to be a combination of the financing you have and price. So variety of lenders, and some lenders may pre-approve you for certain loan amount. This is a very common recommended practice. Get with your bank or whoever can get your car loan and try to get a pre-approved amount. So you already know the interest rate, the amount you can afford. You have that information. So when you go into the dealership, you know what you're working with and you're not going to get surprised. Now, I'm not saying don't listen to what they have to offer. Sometimes, depending on the car and who's offering the credit, let's say the manufacturer is, they may have a better deal than the pre-approved loan you have. Just show them what you have once you get to that point in the negotiation part. And if they can offer better credit terms, you might want to consider that. Avoid being upside down or having negative equity in your car. You want to avoid this at all costs. Just so you know, this is typical with a brand new car. That's why it's always recommended to buy used cars. But if you're going to buy a brand new car, the first couple of years, the depreciation on the vehicle is very, very high, especially the moment the title changes name from the dealer to you and you drive it off the lot. It immediately depreciates a huge amount. So it is not uncommon that as soon as you take the car, you might have negative equity because of that large upfront depreciation. So it happens. What you're trying to do is get out of there, get out of that upside down situation as soon as you can. Look for rebates or low interest financing. Oh, let me take a step back. One way to avoid upside down on new cars is just larger down payment. Okay, so look for rebates or low interest financing. This is part of price compare. It's the same thing as shop comparison. You just comparing loans. You're shopping for loans. Consider the APR, true cost of credit. Always, always, always compare APRs. And then consider the other options. But the APR should be your first point to start comparing financing options. Check out of finance information or bank rate, meaning like, get what's the average interest rates out there. Of course, it varies according to your credit history and your financial capacity, but it's always good to know the range or where things are at the moment so you don't get hit with a very high APR unnecessarily. Post-purchase activities. Since we're talking about cars, they mentioned the lemon laws. This is an actual set of laws in the United States to protect the consumers, that somebody sells your car and as you take it, the car is a lemon, just like we tend to say. So there are some protections that can happen if the car they sold you did not meet some minimum standards. You also need to understand there's the cost of buying the vehicle, but then there's this thing we call true cost to own, which includes the cost of the vehicle itself and then the operating costs, your oil changes, your maintenance, the expected repairs on average. The car will break down. The question is about how often does it happen with that specific model and what should be your expectation of repair costs. Motor vehicle maintenance, that's the regular care, and then automotive service sources. Where can you take it? Car dealers, auto repair shops, mass merchandise retailers, specialty shops. Where to take it is up to you, but don't always consider price. The mechanic on the corner could be a lot cheaper, but may not do the minimum quality work. And you might find yourself spending more on repairs over the long time than spending a little extra upfront, but saving overall. Now, resolving consumer complaints. So let's say we get to the point where there's no choice but to complain. Always start on step one. Start with a place where you purchase. That should be your first stop, because if you go anywhere else, the first thing I'm going to ask you is, have you spoken to the seller? It's the same thing if you do a credit card, you challenge a charge for whatever reason, they ask you, have you spoken to the seller to try to work something out? So return to place of purchase. And by return, mean you may call them, whatever the case may be. Try to get the company, their consumer hotline number. If not, you can call this number you see on the screen. That number should still work and they'll help you find the way to contact the company for consumer issues, because it's becoming more and more common that companies make it very difficult for consumers to contact their customer support. Obtain assistance from a consumer agency. There's a Better Business Bureau if you're having problems. Mediation. A lot of contracts, when you buy something that has this included, like you should always start with mediation, and that's fine. And all it is just you have a third party that helps negotiate an understanding between the two parties in conflict. Now, notice there's non-binding. All they do is give a recommendation of what a fair negotiation is. It doesn't mean you or the other party have to agree. The next level up is arbitration. Same approach. There's a third party, somebody with typically some expertise and professional knowledge and a lot of legal knowledge. And then they make a decision of what the fair situation is. Very similar to going to court. It's done a simpler way without a lot of the nuances that comes with an actual court case. This is binding. An arbitrator dictates and it becomes legal, so you can actually pursue the legal course if one of the parties does not comply. And then there's also a lot of federal and state government agencies. Now, if all that fails, step 4, legal action. Now then go into small claims court, class action suits. In other words, you just have to sue somebody and take to court. That's what it comes down to. Other legal alternatives, legal aid society, prepaid legal services. These are just ways to get to it, but at the end of the day, it's about going to court and having to do some kind of a lawsuit. Personal consumer protection, do business with reputable companies. This is similar to the example of the mechanic in the corner versus an actual established mechanic shop. You may get a cheaper price. We've been saying this from the beginning, but if it's not a reputable company, you may not get good service and very difficult to be able to make a claim after it. Sign contracts you understand. If it's too convoluted, don't sign it, or have somebody that knows how to read it and explain it to you. Many lawyers, for a small fee, when I say small, could be a couple $100, they'll review a contract for you and give you their opinion, or at least explain to you what the contract means. And of course, the bigger the purchase, the more you should think about doing something like that. Be cautious of exaggerated offers. That's the too good to be true. Compare buying on credit versus paying cash. Opportunity cost, always have that in mind. Avoid rushing to get a deal. Sure, Black Friday is an exception where you have to rush to get a deal. But most of the times, try to keep cool to make a wiser decision on your purchasing. That's it for this video. See you on the next one.